Welcome to this edition of the HR Sound Off podcast show, brought to you live and direct from the beautiful AC Marriott Hotel in Jamaica. And I am here with the wonderful, fantastic, my dear friend, Brittany Brathwaite.
Hi, Julie.
How are you doing?
Oh, wow.
It's been a while since you've been on this show.
I know.
And you've been doing a lot of amazing things.
Yeah, you remember when you started?
When I first started, you were like one of my first guests.
I know.
Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
for being patient with me.
Always.
We sat in that booth at Regis, recorded that show.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh, what?
Yeah, time has flown.
Time has definitely flown.
Mm-hmm.
But you are one of my favorite people. You know this.
Thank you.
You do such amazing work. I really admire your fortitude, your knowledge around labor laws, not just in Barbados, but in the region. The work that you do with the ILO, the work that you do everywhere is just so amazing. And I love that despite all of those things, you are a leader of a very big team, and you also run your business, and you are doing so many amazing things. I want to take this moment to just give you your flowers first thing, and just say, I am so proud of you as an HR professional, to know that you are my friend, but to just see you shine and do the amazing things you do.
Thank you.
So kudos and enough flowers, enough respect.
You know,
for you, my friend.
I'm usually like, it's okay. But thank you. I appreciate
Brittany
it.
does
Coming
not
from you.
like to blow her own trumpet. So we got to do it for her.
Thank you.
And it's important that you give your friends their flowers while they're alive. I don't want to be talking about how good you were at your funeral. I want you to hear it now.
Right. I mean, I always tell you that, but it's time for me to like take it. So.
I know, but yes, you got to get your flowers. And that's part of the reason why we're here today.
That's right.
Because you received an award recently that just had me jumping for joy. Would you tell our audience a little bit about what that award was, and where did you go to get it? What was the experience like? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so the award was issued by the International Society of Hospitality Consultants in conjunction with CRIS, which is a Caribbean investment forum that happens annually. And that award was issued to me in Coral Gables, Florida, because that's where the CRIS conference happened this year. So I was awarded as the Caribbean Rising Star for the hospitality and tourism industry across the region. Thank you. And it really, really is an honor to have, the efforts recognized.
Yes.
And my nomination was submitted, and as you have said, I have a very multifaceted portfolio.
Yes,
so I have a 9-to-5. I'm Chief People and Development Strategist with a large organization in Barbados.
Yes.
And my nomination was supported by the CEO of our hotel group, because there are different divisions in that group.
I love it. I love it.
I also, as you said, have my consultancy business, and that provides regional labor advisory services to my clients, but also to agencies through the Caribbean Employers Confederation. So in assessment around the award, a lot of consideration was given to what do nominees do outside of their primary space. So the basis of the award, of course, is, you've done a good job here.
Yes.
But what we really needed to say was how we were contributing in macro ways to the growth of the Caribbean, how we were adding value beyond ourselves and beyond just highlighting our profiles, but ensuring that we are digging deep and adding value to our region, and by extension that particular industry. So I was really, really honored to receive the prestigious award. And for the, there is a lot of work that happens in the
behind the scenes that nobody sees. Those late nights,
that's right,
early mornings,
that's right,
pulling information, because the way you study those pieces of legislation to help organizations and industries actually create their policies means you have to know so many different things. And I really want you to give our audience a little bit of an in-depth in what that work kind of looks like for you.
So I'll give an example. When I worked on the Spotlight Initiative, this is in 2023, and that project was almost a year long. And it really saw me as the Regional Labour Policy Advisor for the Caribbean Employers Confederation on that project, engaging with Cipriani Labour College, who was our partner on the initiative, and developing a robust policy, developing an MOU, developing training guidelines, developing materials to, I wouldn't just say to prevent, but to assist with and really to dig deep into the challenges that we're having with violence in the workplace.
Wow.
If we look across,
very real.
Absolutely, and violence against minorities, women, LGBTQI community. And if we look across the Caribbean region, so the baseline of this was recognizing that there was a deficit with respect to sexual harassment legislation across the region. Actually, yesterday,
that's part of what you talked about yesterday at the C-Sharp conference.
That's right, and that's why we're here in Jamaica.
Yeah.
When I did the labor law matrix, we recognized that that's one of the biggest gaps across the English-speaking Caribbean. And even for those countries who have, proclaimed the legislation, Barbados being one of those countries, it's very new, right? Jamaica is still within its phase for compliance. So that tells you that, we're still within a 6 months period since they're proclaimed. So it really meant that protectionisms in the workplace against violence against women, whether that is domestic violence seeping its way through the doors or different types of discrimination, harassment, etc. The figures were staggering. Because there weren't grievance procedures. There wasn't a minimum threshold in the legislation to say you need to protect this already minority grouping from these things that likely will happen to them. And I'm talking about months of research, because when you put a policy out there that's going to cover the region, you have to be sure that what you're seeing is grounded in accurate research. So you are digging, you are delving into all that has been produced, or as much as we could find internationally, what exists, because there's not a ton of statistics in the region, which is always hard for us, but what exists regionally. And gratefully, the Spotlight Initiative, it didn't just start last year. The Spotlight Initiative is run by the UNFPA and it's funded by the EU. So what we did last year was just to launch it in specific territories. But that was 8 months of rigorous research. 2 or 3 days every week, working meetings, going through the policies. Really, really intense meeting with our colleagues at the Labour College, building those policies before we even got to meeting with our constituents on the relevant sides, because we needed to ensure that what we built and what we were ready to produce for the agency was satisfactory before we could get to building training materials. So then it took me another 4 months to build training materials, build resources, work with the college again to build an e-learning platform. So I'd say, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes commitment. You really have to enjoy the work, this work. But it also means, 95% of what we do is done in the back end. You really have to take pride in the value that you're going to add and the macro effect
Yes.
you're going to add,
Mhm.
even if it never comes to light.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoy the work that I do from
I
the
know
policy
you do.
perspective. Yeah.
I know you do. I know that's your thing.
Yeah.
And I will say I always value you as a resource when it comes to those things, because policy is not where I'm strong.
Yeah.
I can build frameworks around engagement, well-being all day, every day,
That's right. And give me a-
strategy, and I could talk about those things all day, every day. So we really have supported each other a lot over the years. And I really want to say that I feel excited for the work that you're doing, especially around the sexual harassment policies.
Right.
And I feel it really matters even more so in the region, because I just feel the way we as Caribbean people deal with sexual harassment
Yes.
is almost glossed over.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that happen in Caribbean culture that just wouldn't happen on an international
That's right.
footing.
That's right.
And I think also when we talk about these kind of things, I always think about how women sexually harass men.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And it's just kind of glossed over, but men feel a way about it.
Yeah.
And I feel this is a really important time in our history as Caribbean people to really shine a light on these things and say, no, we're not going to tolerate it.
Yeah.
Something needs to be done about it. And let's make a positive change in organizations across the region.
Yeah, I think and the value that I also get is that it gives me the ability from a strategy perspective to really build a very comprehensive strategy when we're looking from at a people management perspective. Because I'm not just, and isn't sexual harassment is very important, but it's not just sexual harassment. There are all these things, right? That I'm looking at from an international perspective. So when I'm looking to refine my strategy for an organization based in Barbados, I'm not taking an insular approach to what's best practice here. I'm not looking at the strategies that are being employed that are driving competitive advantage just in the country or in the region. My focus is always international best practice. My focus is always driving a strategy that could potentially place my clients, my employer, with a competitive advantage on a global scale.
Perspective. Absolutely.
So everything, and I know sometimes my team is like,
but we have to think big. We can't think small.
Every single thing that if you propose an initiative, if you propose something within the strategy pillars, I want you to tell me how the impact this is going to make. What is the metric we're going to get from this? How can we sell that this is going to add value to our people or to our business? And if you can answer those three questions, it helps me to help my team align with my thought process, because that macro perspective is not something we always bring to the table. We need to get micro sometimes too, but that macro perspective, we lose it.
And that's where we really add value to the business.
Absolutely.
And that's why I always thought business acumen is everything in HR.
And we'll talk about that, right?
Yes, we definitely will, because if we don't have good business acumen, then how can we really help an organization to thrive and grow, and its people to thrive and grow if we don't even understand how the business works?
And it's not just about, if you're in manufacturing, understanding the processes and so on. It really is taking the time to build your acumen around what drives this business. How can I look at the iterations of the operations and align my HR strategy with the points where there are gaps to ensure that we are picking up the pieces, right? And again, all of that takes time and effort.
It does.
All of that takes time and effort. So it's not just about saying, okay, we're going to have 5 or 6 initiatives this quarter, but it's, for example, from a macro perspective, I'm looking at the HR reports that come to me every month, and I'm reviewing those metrics. I'm reviewing the information. I'm making requests for further metrics so I can guide decisions. And if I see a segment of the business where our premiums are jumping up and we're seeing higher costs with our medical plan, it tells me something's going on within that division with the health and wellness of our employees. So from a strategy pillar perspective, it means that I obviously want to get my premiums down, right? That's how I talk to my CEO, because that's what he wants to understand. How do we drive costs down? But importantly for me as a people practitioner is, how do I get my people better? How do I, resolve the issues with attrition that will come as a result of illness?
What's the root cause?
How do I assist with retention
Yes.
because we're having challenges if people are going to be taking time off, etc. And then you extrapolate from those macro pillars and determine whether you're going to have initiatives or activities that are, really pinpointed to address those issues.
Yes.
And I take that thought process and apply
Very
it to every
seriously.
segment of the business.
And this is what being a people practitioner is all about.
That's right.
This is what the site that I love to call people experience architecture, where we architect these experiences in such a fantastic way. But it really does matter how we navigate understanding business to creating initiatives that will drive and help people to thrive in the organization. So we drive retention, reduce attrition, and all of those things. Well, so here's what I want to ask you. When it comes to culture, policy and culture really have to be brought together in a very protective, special way.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line between what you understand as cultural norms that need to change and how you intertwine those policies so that people don't feel as though you're trying to take away who they are at their core as a people? How do you navigate that from a Barbados perspective, but you are the world when it comes to policy? How does that interact for you from a regional perspective?
I think it takes understanding the identity of people first and foremost, and that identity, of course, is registered from a national perspective. It's registered from an organizational perspective. So there are different identities that will exist. How do these people identify themselves as your employees? What do they see as, we're here at AC Hotel as the AC Hotel way, right? But also intrinsically, what do they see as the AC Hotel Kingston way, which differs from the AC Hotel Sawgrass way? And if we can extrapolate the key areas of that identity, and we then formulate policies that align with legislation, but also hold the critical elements of that identity, then we can find a workable policy. Now, that's not to say, a workable strategy. That's not to say you're not going to implement things that won't go against the grain that might exist. Because there are cultural norms that aren't acceptable from an organizational perspective. And particularly if you're dealing with a corporate entity, and dependent on the industry as well, there are going to be different norms that you really have to identify whether that can be retained or not. And so a central strategic pillar for me is knowledge share and information share through digitization. I think it's absolutely critical to give your people all the information or the information that you've used to make your decisions. So they understand, even if they don't agree, they have an understanding as to why this decision was made. So if we are going to be taking away an element that you see as core to your identity, I need you to understand why that doesn't intersect with the business identity. And how this will eventually add value for you, and it doesn't mean that this is erasure. So and there may be different types of events that might prompt that, but no matter what, my core area in trying to do it well would be around that knowledge share. If I'm going to make a decision, I need to, if I have 1,300 team members in this group, if I have 2,000, if I have 2,500, how do we provide a synopsis of the information that we have made this decision based upon, and we give this to our employees to help them understand why this is happening. And that, I think that's a good principle to take forward, even in change management. There's been a lot of change that I've driven, particularly with the group that I'm in. And a lot of the change initially was uncomfortable.
Very.
It was very uncomfortable for leaders, for the executives, for our team members. And a lot of the change, it needed to happen very quickly. So in that happening, I had to find a way to balance my desire to ensure that we drive competitive advantage very quickly, but our people also understand. And the critical point in that was building that identity around understanding, not agreement. And I'm
Yes.
going to say that a million times.
Yes,
You are not
understanding.
gonna have
You're not.
agreement.
No, and you got to be okay with that.
You better be okay with that,
Mhm.
because if you are seeking from your mass team population full agreement,
It's
your
not gonna happen.
strategy will fail.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what you really need to do is to satisfy that knowledge share.
Yes.
And that means that even if people challenge it, you can always, reiterate, this is the reason the decision was made. And I get it. You might not always agree.
Yeah.
But this is why we do it, and this is how we think this is going to benefit you.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's really been integral.
Yeah.
In driving change, in driving the implementation of our strategies, regardless of the size of the organization.
Yeah. A good communication plan is absolutely necessary.
Absolutely.
And then it's about everyone is not going to be on the bus, as you rightly said. But it's if we get the majority of the people on the bus,
That's right.
and the rest just kind of understand they're either on the bus or off the bus. And even if you're in the back and a little disgruntled,
Yes.
that's okay.
Yes.
But when you see the big picture of what's going to happen in the future that's going to make things better for you, then you'll be like, that's why they did what they did.
There we go. And for me, it's not just building the business acumen. For me as an HR practitioner,
Yes.
for my team, I really think we should be building the business acumen of our people.
Exactly.
Because if you're driving the
Yes.
mastery, I always say this, even if we have somebody who's an office assistant and they're coming in and they're cleaning the offices every day, I want them to feel as though we are driving and we are inculcating a culture where the mastery in what they're doing is valued.
It matters. Yes.
So that if we can drive mastery and innovation, creativity in every single sphere of our business through that knowledge share, we get a different type of employee.
You definitely do. You get an engaged employee,
Yes.
you get a motivated employee, a happy employee, and that's what you want.
Yes.
Because that leads to loyalty, which means customers are having good experiences, retention all across the way. And then it's going to mean that they're going to tell more people, you need to work here.
That's right.
And this is why.
That's right.
And then the customers are going to say, you need to go stay there, and this is why. So when they see the big picture of how all of these things come together, I absolutely agree with you. And I do think it's important that employees do understand the full business journey.
Yes.
Like whenever we do training, I always say, like, have you read your company's annual report? And people go, no. I said, so how do you know which parts of the business are making the most money, doing well, not doing well? Which part of the businesses actually exist that you might want to be a part of?
That's right.
That you could add to your individual development strategy for when you're having your conversations with your managers on your
Correct.
performance. What things you want to do as you navigate your career through the organization. How do you know if you're not looking at the business and understanding what it does? So I really, we speak the same language all the time. We are always well aligned when it comes to those things. The last question for you is, what do you see the future for Brittany Brathwaite? What does that look like for you?
That's a big question.
I know. But you're a big girl. You can answer it.
That's a big question, man.
What does the future for Brittany Brathwaite look like now? Like, what is the next, not necessarily big thing for you, but what is the next phase of the work that you are doing look like for you?
I really look forward to continuing to do policy work. I really look forward to continuing to drive strategy and help organizations thrive. I've always thought that whatever ultimately is the plan for me, God has always had such a divine intervention in my life and guided my path. So I'm really, really blessed with respect to the projects that I've been able to be engaged on. So I can't say there's a specific thing.
Right.
I'm doing more studying and I love to learn, as you know.
Yes.
So doing more things that can strengthen my ability to participate in the areas regionally and globally that I want to participate in. But I certainly think if we were to identify one thing, I'd like to participate in some global projects.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing lots of regional work.
I speak that into being for you. It's going to happen. I want to see that for you too.
Thank you. So participating in some regional projects under more agency work, participating potentially with global clients, and I have been, but potentially driving my consultancy in that area as well. and just adding value
Yeah.
as I go forward. I think that's a big driver, satisfaction driver for me.
But you gotta say continuing to add value because you
Okay.
always add value.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Continue.
But I think it's, for us as practitioners, I often think that we are very concerned with the satisfaction metric of our teams.
Yes.
And we seldom are self-aware enough to say, okay, what is gonna make me sick? Like,
Yes.
what is my satisfaction threshold? And for me, my satisfaction threshold is where I know that the people I'm engaging with, whether that be a client, whether that be my boss, whether that be CEOs on different divisions of businesses, whether that be agency persons that I'm engaging with, I know that they know that I have the potential to, or I have actually been adding value. That is absolutely critical for me. So whatever is next, I want to be able to add real value, make real change for the most people possible. And hopefully, with you speaking those things into being and with me speaking those things into being,
it's gonna happen. It's definitely gonna happen. Brittany, it's an absolute pleasure speaking to you
Thank
today.
you very much.
I wish you every continued success as you navigate these waters.
Thank you.
I will continue to cheer you on from the stand.
Thank you.
But I'm also looking forward to working with you,
Yes.
learning
Got a
and
lot of
continuing
stuff
to grow
happening.
with you. So I'm excited for all of those things as we work together.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us today on the HR Sound Off podcast show.
Thank you.
I am Julie Turney. This is Brittany Brathwaite. We're signing off. See you next time.